Good afternoon, folks. It's Sunday. It's 3:04 Central Standard Time, August 9th, 2020, and it is across the Pondcast, the best podcast you've never heard of. It's me, Sam, and Matt, and we have a special guest. We have Adam Doud today. We're joining us for the first time. Welcome, Adam, sir. How are you? Are you okay? Because
I've got an invisible water bottle.
I was gonna say you had it looked like you took a drink out of it. And it was like clear. I went, that is badass, man. What a way to start the show.
I know, right? This is amazing. I love this. What's behind me? Oh, it's my Star Wars background for.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say it looked like kind of like a busted out Louvre kind of thing going on up top. So I wasn't sure if it was Star Wars or like post-apocalyptic Paris in 2025 or something like that.
Well, that's a hell of a way to start things off.
Right, exactly. So welcome to the show, sir. How are you? You said you had a busy weekend, so how have you been as far as just general busyness, life in general?
Oh, this is the first week in a long time that I have worked every day this week. Wow. Normally I try to take the weekends off just because you have to. But especially as a freelancer, there's no such thing as an 8-hour workday. So you have to set limits for yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be working just let me get this one last thing done, and let me just get this one last thing done. No, you can't do that. So, but for this week, especially the Benefit of the Doud show that comes out in a couple of hours, it was a longer edit than normal, and so it took a lot, and we had a couple of little technical burps that put things off a little bit farther. So right. I finished publishing it this morning, and then I went and worked outside for 4 hours, which was probably a mistake as well.
Oh yeah, it's a little. I mean, I thought you're in the Chicago area. Is that kind of where you? Yeah. So I know at least in St. Louis, it's usually pretty miserable and humid throughout the summers. I figured probably in Chicago, it's probably not much better.
It's hot as balls out today. So.
Yeah, good deal. So Matt's handling. He usually the first minute or two of the show, he's usually quiet because he's looking down. He's not being praying, or he's not being any kind of that. He's actually just he gets the tweets out. He's the tweet out sender human. That's what he does.
Zen and the art of podcasting we got going over there. I like that.
Well, we have tried to find ways to find strengths and try to maximize those strengths and those kind of things. And he's good at the tweets. I'm okay at it, but anyway. So, nice. Matt, how are you feeling? I know you're under the weather. So, how are you feeling as far as you can just grunt or moan or just?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm as well as I can be, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm great, good.
Yeah, pretty much.
But cool. Well, thanks for having me on. This is really fun. I love podcasting, and I'm a very social person. So any chance I have to talk to people, it's awesome. So I do confess that I have a problem looking at myself while I'm talking. So
okay.
if while I'm talking, I'm looking over here and over here, it's not you, it's me. I promise you.
Right. So, yeah, me too. So no, don't feel bad about that at all. So yeah, everybody's always, we just started this. Actually, I started this a couple of months ago just because I thought I'd give it a shot. I just what the hell? So I started off calling it the Sunday stuff and things because I was just talking about random stuff in general. I really had no idea what I was doing. And then finally Matt and I got together, we started this, and here we are. So we're excited that you've had take time. I know people are busy. You've got, your freelance work and you're busy on a Sunday. It's so we really appreciate you taking time to spend an hour with us talking about just tech and whatever else comes up in the chat or whatever.
Wait, this is an hour?
It's about an hour.
I'm sorry, we're gonna have to renegotiate my contract then. No,
sure.
I'm kidding.
Actually, the shows used to be closer, as you remember, before they were about closer to 2 hours. And then, I had reached out to you about just general feedback, and you're like, it's just for the podcast. And you're right, because I commute about 45 minutes or so when I was commuting to my job, and it's right at that sweet spot, right? You're at that 45 to 55 minutes because once people get into work, they have to take their headphones out probably and actually talk to their coworkers, which is not always the most fun thing to do on a Monday. So if you're at that 2 hour mark, they'd have to either keep listening at work, which is not good, or they'd have to come back in the car and they've lost all that train of where it's disconnected. So that was part of the reason why we kind of trimmed it down just on follow advice from you and other people giving us good feedback about it.
So to all the listeners out there, you're welcome, or I'm sorry.
Well, they're probably a little bit of both. They're probably happy that we're able to do the things we do, and then, but maybe at that 2 hour mark, it gets a little. People are hanging on for dear life. So
yeah. And with some podcasts, it like because the Pocket Now Weekly, it's honestly been a while since I've listened to it. Sorry, Josh. But no, like the Pocket Now Weekly, that always used to be like an hour and a half, 2 hour show. And that was just because we would talk forever about everything. And so it's like ever since that show, when we kind of moved into like other shows that I was hosting and designing, it's just like it seemed like even when we were doing the Android Authority podcast, that tended to get towards the maybe 70-minute mark, so something like that, because we could drone on forever if we wanted. But no, I mean, yeah, like an hour is a real solid good chunk of time, and yeah, I think that's just that's a good place to be.
Good. Well, like I said, and we that was again, it's just listening to a show, and I like listening to all that stuff. But a lot of it is I have not enough hours and time and bandwidth in my day to listen to everything I probably want to listen to. So I feel kind of like, man, I almost feel kind of bummed out that I can't listen to everything I'd like to listen to, which is kind of like I feel bad about that. Sometimes I go, I'd like to catch your last couple shows, but life happens and you just can't always get to it. So what's good thing is we can always come back and maybe even watch a week or two later, which is always nice to do. So since we're here, we might as well do our shirts. So Adam, if you want to start, our t-shirt check of the week. So
I'm repping the merch.
There you go. And it's funny because now you got this whole green screen. It's like making your face on there look real kind of like electric, like a boogie woogie. It's kind of cool.
Your mileage may vary when you buy this shirt. You may not get the digital enhancement that I just had. So
and then Matt, yes, he's rocking the shirt, man. It looks good.
I like it. First time.
Is it now? What did you? Now is it just because you wanted to wear the gray, or is it you not like the black, or just it was the black's already dirty because you spilled coffee on it or something?
No, it was at the top. This was just the first one I grabbed. So
okay, cool.
That's the one that was at the top of the drawer.
Mm-hmm.
So good deal. So and then I've got my man TK Bay. He so graciously yesterday. I got busy with it. I couldn't watch the stream. I had to listen to it post. He was actually rocking our shirt, so he received his TK. So it looked good on him, man. I was happy to see that, and he looks pretty good. So, so I saw that you were made a comment about the LG Velvet. Now I guess my question is, how we already know how like Juan and other people feel about LG. You're kind of like really a kind of an LG fan, or you're really kind of not an LG fan. That doesn't seem to be much me gray area in that OEM. So have you always really liked their stuff? Is that something that because they've pivoted now, you're starting to warm? I mean, how is your overall feeling about all the LG in their last couple of years?
I was not a fan of LG up through like especially what was it, G5 with the mods, with the attempted mods that they tried. That was a G5, right? Like after that, when they got to the G6, LG got a little bit boring, so it was kind of hard to be a cheerleader for them. But yeah, definitely over the last year, ever since like the V50, pretty much the dual screen case era, I've really paid a lot more attention to LG, just because I think it's I did one of the last two episodes. I don't know, they all kind of merged together at this point. I kind of talked about the evolution of the dual screen case from the V50 all the way up to the current. All the way up to the current Velvet, right. And it's the really cool thing is that LG has made improvements to every case. Starting with the V50, where you could only have it like that, or like that, and that was right. It. And then like the G8X and the V60 both, gave you this hinge where you could move it around. But the thing that kind of bugged me, and this is so stupid and superficial, but still, the thing that kind of bugged me was like in the edges here. You could see that this button out here did not line up with the button on the phone in here.
Right.
And then LG fixed that for the Velvet. And then as opposed to making like the entire glass screen with only this window here, they just went ahead and made this all plastic, so it's much better protected. It's easily scratched, which is kind of unfortunate, but right. But I think that's just a question of LG figuring out like the right material combination and whatnot. But it's just like I like the fact that LG is improving with every generation.
Right.
So and yeah, that's kind of my take on the LG Velvet. The review for that is coming from Cliff Thomas next week, I believe, if everything goes well.
Cool.
So listen for that, and you'll get our full thoughts and opinions on it, and it'll be fun.
So we have a comment here that your audio is a little low, so I don't know. It sounds okay to me, but there may be something just to give a little bit more gain. I guess other people are. There we go.
I can put the microphone in frame too. So
there you go. Cool. That's
wise men said.
Yeah. It was like now it's like Larry King live. Go ahead, caller. Go.
Go, caller. Tell me what you want, or get off my set.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Okay. Yeah, anyway, so we got Dave's in the house. We got Ronald. We got Aditya. And so people are asking, Dave makes a comment about the V30, really, truly, but the burn and Meyer. Yeah, a lot of, I guess, old LGs were having issues with burn. And I guess other phones too, but it seemed to be a little bit more plaguing the LG devices. I know somebody said they had either an LG V10 or some other older LGs like a G6 and stuff that had some screen burn-in issues and the like. So
it was honestly kind of hard for me to give LG the time of day pre LG G5 just because I don't know, like there was just something about I think the reason was because that was kind of the heyday for HTC, and like HTC was kind of the sexy, not Samsung alternative of that particular era. So like a lot of the V series kind of snuck past me just because I was kind of focused on HTC at that point. But you know, nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
And look where HTC is today.
So. Yeah. Although I think they're, I know I still have I actually have a HTC 10 upstairs and a U12. I was using it earlier today. Just took it around with me. But they still have the Desires. They're in obviously Taiwan, so maybe they can make a comeback. But there was kind of another point that Ben was making another podcast about these OEMs. It's like, how can they really get traction in the United States and abroad if they don't have any, like in the UK and in the United States, if they don't have carrier support?
They don't have carrier support, yeah.
Oh. But that's a double-edged sword because then you got to go to carriers and you got to do all those hoops, and it's just like so. Yeah. It's a shame. It seems like OEMs that, it's almost like this is the bed podcast you never heard of. It's like OEMs and all these developers and these phone manufacturers, they have so many great devices that general consumers, the regular people that you're seeing at Walmart or you're seeing at the Costco or the Piggly Wiggly or wherever you go to grocery, they're just not going to be on their radar. They're never going to know about it. It's a shame.
Oh yeah. And the only time I see Motorola phones is when I was taking the train down to downtown Chicago, because that's where Motorola headquarters is. And I would have, like, when I commuted downtown for 4 years, I would have at least 2 Motorola phones in every train car.
Right.
It was kind of hilarious. So and like, because I think someone, I don't remember who, but someone commented that they saw someone with an LG V60 in a dual screen case just the other day, and I want to say it was in the SGG Discord.
Yeah, that was Ron. It was.
Ron.
He's in the live chat now.
And so that's when I asked, does she work for LG? Because that seems to be like when people do that. It's hard. I mean, it really is hard, which is why, a company like OnePlus finally making a deal with T-Mobile to put their phones in stores really was a significant thing. I mean, OnePlus is not, at the time, OnePlus was not the flagship of flagships. They were still doing kind of like the budget cutting corner thing. These days with their latest flagships, they're arguably, sitting at the big boys table. And I think they probably needed that carrier relationship in order to sit at the big boys table, because otherwise, otherwise they're, the only thing they had to go on was, this is a cheap phone that you can buy off of our website. And right. I don't think, a lot of people were willing to pony up $1,000 for a phone that they've arguably never heard of. I asked my wife if she wanted to upgrade from, she had an old Xiaomi phone up until recently. And I said, hey, do you want this, this OnePlus 6T that I have? And she's like, what's a OnePlus? And, and she lives with me. So, I mean,
you would think that she'd be at least exposed to stuff. It's like my wife, like she'll look at me and I'm like in the bed and she'll go, what do you got there now? I was like, I don't know. She goes, is that new? I was like, no, it's new to you. She goes, right. God, you're such a dick. Shut up. And she'll smack me in the head and stuff like that. Right. So we have a really good relationship. So it's pretty cool. So actually, the funny thing, my daughter had some friends over last night. All of them had iPhones except this one guy. He happened to have a Motorola. I noticed it because I saw the camera module and I saw the Moto logo on the back. And I said, hey, it's interesting you have a Moto. He's like, yeah, I've never had a Motorola phone. He goes, it's cool. Watch. He goes like this. He goes, And the light came on. I was like, yeah, that's a thing in most Moto phones. He's like, yeah, I know. That's pretty cool, huh? And
Every
I go,
phone should do that.
and I said, that's funny. Watch this. And I took out my G8X. And I went, Hook. And I go, look at this. And I showed him like, hey, look at this Discord on one side, YouTube on the other. He's like, holy shit, that's a thing. I go, yeah, that's a thing, man. He's like, that's awesome. And so and Ron said, yeah, he saw the woman with it yesterday, is what he said.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I definitely dig the dual screen, and I think it's a good middle step in between like just a normal slab and a foldable phone, because I don't think that I definitely the general public is not ready to spend $2,000 on a phone for sure, whether it folds or not. So this is a good intermediate step to kind of maybe get people to warm up to the idea. At least that's how I see it.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So what? So I guess that just spirals into the next question. What kind of phone do you use as a daily? Do you do the review thing and then switch a lot, or do you have a daily and you just like test it and then just go back to your regular phone? What's your kind of general phone usage look like?
I tend to get bored with phones pretty quickly, so
I can relate.
Yeah, especially if I don't have one to review, I start to get a little itchy. So right now I'm using the V60. I was using the TCL 10 Pro up until I went on vacation, because as I mentioned on my podcast, the V60 has the IP rating, the TCL 10 Pro does not. And since we're going to be like boating and canoeing, I figured it's probably better to have a waterproof phone. And I like the camera much better, much better. So, but like near future, I've got the Pixel 4a coming, so I'll be switching that to do a review. And then after I'm done with that review, I don't know, because like October's coming, so it wouldn't surprise me if there's probably like at least 2 or 3 more phones that I'll have to review, at least this fall. So I'll probably do that, and if I don't have anything to review until then, I'll probably stick with the Pixel, at least for the near term, unless, of course, I just find something that I need to do that I absolutely cannot do on the Pixel, because it is a mid-range phone, so we'll see.
Right.
But I mean, then, you've got Juan who's, shooting and editing and rendering a video on the Pixel 4a, so maybe I won't find anything that I can't do.
Right. I mean, like I said, and for a person like you, that is very valuable commentary, because then it's like you've seen him use a Pixel, even at a 750 or 730 or a 765G or whatever, and you could see it may not do it as quick. You may lose 10, 15, 20 seconds, but it's fully capable of crushing any of that kind of content and doing that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I think it's the funny thing is, if that was more of a narrative that was being pushed and broadcast to people, that, hey, you are really overbuying processing power. I mean, what is the general person doing in the street? They're TikToking, they're YouTubing, they're watching videos, they're posting Twitters, they're doing the Instaface and the face TikToks or whatever, right? They are not crushing audio. They're not they're not using power directors or anything else on their phones. They're just basically using it as a media consumption communications tool. And do you really need a 65 plus for that?
Well, that's true. That's true. It's like people who buy the Pixel 4a aren't shooting 4K vlogs and rendering videos, and they're just people who are buying a phone because it's got a good camera and it's a phone. Like nobody else looks into it as further than that.
And $350 is a good price.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's funny because in the use cases that you were just laying out, the TikToking and the Instagramming, like the one common denominator is the camera, and I think that's why a lot of people gravitate. It's not a coincidence that the most popular phones, the iPhone and the Samsung phones, also have typically the best cameras. So will the Pixel unseat anybody in that regard? Probably not, because to be honest with you, they're not selling it in T-Mobile stores or in AT&T. They are selling it Verizon, though. Do I remember that correctly?
I don't know. I don't have
crazy.
I don't know. That's possible. I don't know if anybody in the chat actually has Verizon. If they are, because I have AT&T, and I know they've had the Pixel 4 and the 4 XL. They were available.
DSO's got Verizon because he's had this whole issue with the S20 that he's just brought.
Right. Right. And I feel bad for him, but because I was reading through that thread yesterday. But.
Yeah.
And Joker makes a good comment. The chop chop is nice, but the OP slider to quiet the phone is. Yeah, I wish that was just. If anybody's going to copy a hardware feature, why other manufacturers just don't get on board with some kind of a hardware slider? It's so awesome.
I like it. I use it.
When I had it on my OnePlus 6, I loved using that slider. It's just like you're in a movie, you can even reach in your pocket. You don't even have to do nothing. You just go in your pocket and go click, click, right? And nobody even knows. It's such a really fantastic feature. I wish for hardware. I wish it was just adopted by more OEMs.
Oh yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer because you're often in situations where you need to silence your phone, and what I end up doing typically is I'll just silence everything on my phone and forget to turn it back up because I always have a smartwatch on me, so I tend to know when notifications come in anyway.
Yeah, well, it's not just the slider; it's the dedicated camera button, like on Sony phones. I wouldn't mind that on any phones that I've got.
Yeah. I haven't had a dedicated camera button on a phone since the Lumia days. And it was nice to have that. Although I found, at least on those phones, and I'm granted we're talking about phones that are like 4 years old at this point, but like I found that just flexing my hand enough to push that button tended to like jiggle the camera a little bit, so the photos actually came out worse. So
right.
That's why I just got used to just tapping the screen in order to take the photo.
Yeah. Now, when you made a comment about the Lumia, so the next comment, usually I get this later in the show, but a Windows Phone fan? Yes, no, miss it?
So I started off. So I got my start in this industry by being a WebOS fan, and that died. And so I switched over to Windows Phone, and that died. And so I switched over to Android, and I'm still waiting for Android to die because if I adopt it, then it's probably not long to this world. But no, yeah, I was a Windows fan. I loved Live Tiles, and I really wish that they had. Because I thought Live Tiles were like the perfect intersection between like icon and widget. They weren't obnoxiously big, so they took up like an entire row. But they gave you like just enough and just the right information that you wanted to know. Like if you had a weather Live Tile, it would tell you like what the temperature is now and if it's going to rain. It doesn't give you a lot of extraneous information like sunrise and sunset, which some people want, sure, but like I wish Live Tiles became more of a thing, just because I think they were a really good implementation. As far as like the platform itself, I think it would if they had ever gotten around to building that emulation layer to let Android run in Windows Phone, it could have been a different conversation entirely. But it's just they didn't have the developer support, despite, the oceans of money that Microsoft could have poured into this. They just couldn't get a foothold, and that was unfortunate.
Yeah, and it's just a shame too, because it seemed, and I tell people today, I if I could still use a Windows Phone, and if it was actually okay, you could use it for the basics, but man, I'd take 60% of the apps to continue to use a Windows Phone. I actually tried to buy a Lumia 1520. I found a Hulk green one for like $100, and everything worked except the SIM wouldn't work, so I couldn't use it. I was like, damn it. And I was so, I got it. I actually had I had a Hulk green 1520 back in the day. The funny story was I walked into an AT&T store and I went to a location that I found they had it. And I walked in and this girl, young female, about maybe 20 walks in. I go, hi, I'm here to get the Lumia 1520 and the green one. She's like, what's a Lumia? I was like, it's a Windows phone. She goes, we have one of those here? I said, yeah, it's actually in the store. And I said, and so another salesperson walked over. He said, what are you looking for, sir? The green Lumia 1520s. Oh yeah, we got the one in the back. You're here to buy that? I went, yes, I am. I drove all the way from, I drove 30 miles to get it. And he's like, okay, cool. So we brought it out. And I remember walking out, and I've never in my life felt more excited about leaving a store with a phone in my hand than that green 1520. I know it's stupid as hell. I think it was the color.
Well,
I think it was just.
You loved that thing. You were gutted when the SIM card didn't work.
That was, yeah. I was, when I actually couldn't get the SIM to work, I fought it for 2 days trying to I even got it updated to Windows 10 mobile. So I had the last build of Windows 10 mobile. I was so excited, and it just the SIM wouldn't work. I was like, oh God, I got to get rid of this phone. But I almost kept it anyway. So I definitely, and HTC, obviously I still have 2 HTC devices. So I I have a place in my heart, and I don't want to. I'm almost afraid to try a different phone because I'm wondering if the phone I like is not going to bite the farm sometime in the next year or two. So, I mean, I'm glad that LG's made a pivot on the Velvet. I'm curious to see what the V pivot's going to look like. Are they going to stay with another just name? I hope, or are they going to keep another like Velvet? Are they going to go with like satin and cloth? And I mean, are they going to keep going with that? And are they going to go to like? I would wish they would use the chocolate. I wish they would go back and redo the chocolate name for the V, just for a nostalgia play, just to have people who maybe back in the day remember using an LG V chocolate go, oh, they're redoing that, and kind of having a not maybe keeping that as like the next, we're going to keep using food as the next V series follow through, but just to maybe generate some kind of, but that makes sense. And that's marketing, and LG doesn't seem to be real big on doing that for itself. It seems like it relies on Juan Carlos Bagnell to
LG is very focused at the minute on trying to regain brand recognition.
Yeah.
Like the Velvet is a perfect example. It's a phone aimed at media as well as consumers, because it'll create the media hype without them spending any money on ads and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a good phone to boot. But the only problem is market releases, because again, like the UK and certain places, we don't get it.
Right.
So.
And carrier cooperation and all that. So we'll see.
I mean, EE might get it, because EE have got the V50 at the minute, which is weird because that's last year's phone.
Yeah.
But there we go.
I think LG's making a lot of right moves as far as like design and, just branding is concerned. So now it's going to be a question of, getting butts in the seats. So.
Right. Pretty much. I mean, I'd buy a Velvet if they were available, but I'll have to source mine from Europe if I want one. So.
Right.
Yeah, the Webster Ron makes a comment. Yeah, his friend got an LG Velvet and loves it. And I had a guy at work who saw me when we were right before we left work, when we were out on work from home now. He saw my G8X, and he actually had a OnePlus. That's why he was one of the newer guys that came in and said, hey, man, that's not a phone that most normal people have. So I kind of knew he may be a tech guy. So we kind of were talking one day, and he saw my G8X. I had just gotten it. I had only a month, and he's like, wow, that's really cool. Well, long story short, about a month ago, he sends me a Skype message. He goes, hey, you're not going to believe it. I was looking to get a new phone. I got the V60 just because I remember you having the G8X and thinking that dual screen was totally awesome. And I love this phone. He goes, I can't imagine going back to like a Samsung or something else. Cause he was kind of like on the fence, like an S20 or like an S10e. He's like, he wasn't really sure if he wanted to spend the money. And he goes, man, this phone was not as much money. I got a good deal on it, and it's been awesome. He goes, it's so good, it's almost comical. So so we're trying, and Simon's he's putting one out there. Message LG about releasing Velvet in the UK. So there are people in the UK sending messages to LG trying to get the word out and help them out. So we'll see.
The interesting thing is that his next comment, he says they are going to, but no specific time frame. That's interesting.
Well, that would be.
That's not a hard no. It's not a good.
We'll brush that question off till somebody else sends us that message.
Yeah, and like I said, and I think somebody else and Dave's with me on the chocolate. He'd like to see the new chocolate. I think that would be cool, and even come out with like kind of like a kind of a chocolate store color to it. Maybe not. Maybe something just to give it a new color. I guess what it is I miss the Lumias because I liked having the color choice, and I'm okay with a polycarbonate frame, and not what Samsung calls polycarbonate on the Note 20. Not that. That's plastic. I'm talking about the good old fashioned Lumia polycarbonate. The one, and I'm okay. But again, somebody made the comment, well, they've had plastic phones. But no, Lumia was $1,000 or $1,200. I mean, that was. Why do you feel about the whole Note? What's your opinions on? I don't know if you have a Note in house. Will you be getting one? How does that whole thing strike you as far as all that?
I do not have a Note. I will not be getting a Note. I was given a very polite "will keep you in mind" from Samsung, which is adorable. I know it. I get it. I'm the new kid on the block, so I'm going to have to work up to the Samsungs. And I frankly, as much as I love my podcast, I don't have the budget to spend $1,300 on a new phone. So So yeah, no. I mean, like the Benefit of a Doud podcast that's coming out today is a long discussion about the Samsung Unpacked event. So, teaser. And the conversation was basically centered around how the Note 20 Ultra is insanely expensive, especially considering the current economy. But at the same time, this is like one of the first phones, with the exception of the S20 Ultra, that like just has no compromises whatsoever. Like, it has the tip top of everything that you could possibly ask for on a spec sheet. And like the battery being at 4,500 as opposed to like 5,000, which I think the S20 Ultra was, that's kind of but I mean, you had to put a pen in there. So
right.
So we had to cut space somewhere. So I kind of get that. But even so, like the screen, the 120 hertz, the laser autofocus on the camera, the optical zoom, the 12 megapixel sensors for 2 out of the 3 sensors, and the last sensor being 108 megapixel sensor. I mean, it's like you're getting like the best you're getting the speckiest spec phone you could possibly spec. So is it worth the $1,300? That's an arguable point. I mean, it's a lot of money for sure, but you're also getting the best of the best of the best in just about everything. So I mean, like it's justified, I think.
Right.
So, and would I love to try one? And would I love to try one out? Absolutely. But like from some of the reviewers that I've seen, like especially doing like camera work with the the multiple levels of zoom, I've seen some that are mind-blowingly good, and I've seen some that are like, okay, that's not bad. But even so, just 5x optical zoom is something that I would kill for, because I'm a dad. And so like I used to go to large gatherings of people with with my kids doing something on a stage, or on gymnastics equipment from 200 feet away. I would love to have a 5x optical zoom on a phone, so that I could that's why I take my that's why I got this camera with the telephoto lens, so that I can get those shots. But if I could do this with something that looks like this, that would be much better, so yeah, I would love to test it out someday. I'll get there. Subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and
please do.
As I gain more popularity, maybe I'll get up to that, the on top of Mount Samsung.
So, and then, I guess the thing is, we're getting like, a lot of comments about, Samsung. And I guess my question, it seems like there's been a lot more. The Note always had the more specs, obviously. It was always the most expensive phone when Samsung would come out with. But it seems like this time around, the Note really is generating a lot more negative comment. Usually everybody's like kind of like on board with Samsung and they kind of run with it. Even if they do have negative comments, it's usually from the same group of people. But I've even seen some other people who are really like questioning the whole Note 20 at all. Like, is that just a position to upsell a Note 20 Ultra because it's so totally disconnected from the Note Ultra? Is that a play?
The Note 20 looks like it's a marketing move. It makes no sense that this year, out of all the other years they've released multiple phones, this year they decided to go plastic.
Yeah.
Sorry,
okay.
Glastic.
Yeah. For a moment there, I thought you were talking about the S20 Ultra. I'm just like, okay, but then I realized you're actually talking about the Note 20, which, as much as we talk about the Samsung Unpacked event in the podcast that's dropping today, I realized after editing, we never even said Note 20 if it wasn't followed by Ultra.
Right.
Like we didn't even talk about it. It was an afterthought. And I think in the minds of most people, the Note 20 Basic, or the Note 20e, if you will, is going to be an afterthought, because it's a lot. The Note 20 Ultra is a lot more expensive, but it's also a lot better in a lot of different ways.
Well, it's only if you're in for $1,000, why not be in for $1,200 and get everything you need?
Right.
I mean, that's it. The Note 20 was like $650, $799. Then I could see like, okay, or it's like we're making the Note. Like I bought the Note 10 specifically because it was smaller. I was okay with not expandable storage because I have other options for storage. So I was okay with it. And there was enough of a significant price difference where that jump didn't cost justify. I was like, well, I'm into it for $949. That's cool. I'm right where I need to be, plus the size. But I can't imagine anybody in their right mind looking at the Note 20 and the specs and that price, staring at $1,000 right, and looking at $1,200 and going, this is way more phone. That $1,200, that extra $200 is absolutely justified. If you're into the Note, you might as well just go for the 20 Ultra and not even look at the Note, just especially when you're in hand.
Well, that's just it. It's like, well, if you've got a Note 8 and you're due your upgrade, but you only have ever had Note phones, you're looking at this year's Notes thinking, well, it's got to be the Note 20 Ultra because the Note 20 is this, and this. But then would you start looking at the Note 10s? Because if you haven't got the budget to spend on a Note 20 Ultra and you're looking at the Note 20, is it safe to assume you can be recommended the Note 10 Plus at a cheaper price, technically more premium specs and a better screen than the standard Note 20?
Right.
Possibly.
Yeah, so it gives you some options. Again, like you said, to your point, Adam, I don't think the Note 20 is going to blip on anybody's radar. I think everybody's just going to skip it. It's just
all the review units were the Ultras, all of them. You didn't see any videos on the 20. So even Samsung are like, it's there, but we don't care about it.
Right. But I mean, and this kind of goes back to like the OnePlus 8, where we had the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Plus. Wait, the OnePlus 8 Pro, thank you.
Right. That's okay.
It's like, something there is not right. Hang on a second. But and at the time, I was speculating, like, does the OnePlus 8 exist so that OnePlus can say that the OnePlus 8 starts at, what was it, $699 or something like that?
Right.
But I mean, realistically, if you're buying a phone, it starts at $899, and even more realistically, it's probably going to $999. Because you're going to get the the extra storage and the extra RAM.
So that's it. Once you spec it up a little bit, it's past that mark where they say it starts at. But yeah, it starts at, but you're only getting 64 gigabytes or like this. So anything worth buying is going to be more than what they say it is.
Yeah, so to me, it kind of feels like more of a marketing move than anything, just to say, hey, the Note 10 starts at $1,000. Well, yeah, but does it really?
Right. Yeah, I bought a Note 10, and that's all I've ever owned on any Samsung device. I've only owned Notes. Matter of fact, my stepdaughter actually is rocking the Note 10 now because she wanted to get off of 6S Plus. Yeah, she has 6S or 6 Plus for her iPhone, and she was like, she kept seeing all the stuff, and she saw me. What really caught her attention, ironically, was not any phone I had that she'd ever seen. I was taking pictures for her. One of her little graduation dances or whatever on a P30 Pro. I actually had a P30 Pro, and she saw that, was like, man, that. And then she thought, and obviously the P30 Pro versus a 6 Plus, it's not really a apples to apples comparison, but to her, she's like, I want to try Android. Of course, my wife absolutely lost her ever loving mind. She's not an Apple fan, but she just doesn't. She's like, she's your typical Apple consumer, right? I got my thing. I push the button. Angry Birds goes, and that's it. That's all I care about. It works, and I know how to use it, and I don't want to go anywhere else, and it works fine. She has my 8 Plus. Right. So it got to the point where it was just like, I look at the Note 20, I'm like, that does not move the needle at all. And the Note 10 was like, I like the Note 10. It's a nice phone. It's a good phone. She loves the damn thing. She thinks it's, especially when I showed her that the stylus can actually, as a shutter, for a young person, that's kick ass because they can just hold it. They're all about that selfie life anyway. So when I showed her, exactly. When I showed her you could use the stylus to take a picture, that was it. It was game over. I don't think I'm ever getting that phone back. And I showed her.
You don't have to do the claw with the thumb.
Right. And then you have to get the wobbles. Where it wobbles.
You can just hold it out like that. Hey, you know what? Yeah, so let's do something for the gram here. Can I get you guys in there?
I don't know.
No, I don't know if you're gonna see it, but
brightness. I don't know. Maybe if you scrub it.
Maybe.
So we got, a lot of people in the comments are just talking about, basically, and again, the captive audience we have, as far as that, they're making comments about like, they look at Samsung phones and we're like, man, it's just, they know there's options. They know there's LG. They know there's Velvets. They know there's, somebody actually made a comment here. I think it was Simon talks about a Mi 10. Like, they even know about like phones like Mi 10 Pros and Mi 10 Lites and Xiaomi's and Realme's and those kind of, and Matt had that Oppo, that Oppo Find. That was a sweet phone. Actually, that phone that Americans would never even know it exists.
No. Right. Well, the Realme X2 Pro that I had not long ago.
That was pretty nice. That phone was pretty sweet.
For $350, that was ridiculous. 855 plus, 12 gigabytes RAM, 256 gigabytes storage, and a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. But it wasn't just on paper. Like on paper, that looks good, but using the actual phone, Realme UI is really, really good, and it doesn't heavy on anything. And the phone was the battery lasted quite a long time, and the cameras were really good as well. It wasn't like it was a cheap phone because it wanted to be on spec paper, but it actually performed as well. So I was I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised that they didn't lack in the camera, because normally when people aim to say they've got the specs on paper but charge a cheaper price, the camera and the battery usually suck. But it had a 90Hz screen as well, and it was a good phone for £350.
And then Goran's got to jump in here. He regrets not buying the 4. That was a great note, by the way, and the Alpha that year. But he also didn't have the M8. I love the M8. That's probably between the 1520 and the HTC M8 are probably my 2 favorite devices of all time.
Did he not buy the Note 4 because of how terrible that demonstration was, that Broadway show that Samsung did at the time? Which, man, I still have nightmares about that.
Oh God, really? Oh man, no way. Yeah, I never. Back then, I wasn't watching any of those kinds of any press events, or I was just getting into the phone space. I was kind of a late jumper into that. And my first smartphone was really an iPhone 4, which was my first phone. Okay. So yeah, it's just the notes. I guess the question is, it seemed like was Samsung going to basically talk about dissolving the Note line, and just basically was the Note really even necessary anymore? Just having an S20 Ultra and then S20 Ultra with a pen, basically, is what you have.
Second half of the year releases the rumor was to be for the flips and the folds. First half of the year was for the S line.
Right.
I don't know.
How can you get rid of the pen? What would you do with the pen? Would you just stick it in the S20's Ultra, S30 Ultra, and call it a day?
I mean, I guess what you could do is you could make the Note like the Plus version. And just so you know, my screen has completely frozen, so I assume you can still hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can still hear.
Excellent. Okay, great. So I would assume the best Samsung would be able to do, I think, would be to kind of take away the just using this year as an example, take away the S20 Ultra and make that like the S20 Note or something like that. Maybe they could swing something like that. And then, do foldables for the second half of the year. I don't know. I mean, I think Samsung's probably got a pretty decent thing going on here. And I still think that their foldable phones are still not enough to carry they're not enough to carry a fall release. Right. So they can be like an also ran, hey, we've also got these awesome phones along with the Note. So I think it's going to be at least a couple more years before foldables can really stand on their own. So yeah, I don't see Samsung adjusting their S Note strategy anytime.
No,
so.
Right.
It's just because the Notes have become so close now to the S. It's like, what really, apart from the pen and a slight design change, what really is the difference? I mean, this year the S20 Ultra, it's improved camera on the Note 20 Ultra, but apart from it being a bit more boxed off, at least for us this side of the world, we're still getting the same Exynos 990, so we're not even getting the upgraded 865 to the 65 Plus. We're still getting the same chip.
Right.
So for us, the S20 Ultra and the Note 20 Ultra, apart from the pen and the slight change in design, it's the same phone. And the S20 Ultra's got a bigger battery. The only difference is they've improved the camera, because the S20 Ultra had autofocusing issues.
Yeah.
But again, without the Snapdragon in it, it's not even an upgrade, because we don't get that bump to the 865 Plus like you guys do.
Yeah. So Adam, I apologize. We totally skipped over. I usually go to more of an origin story. So I was curious, how did all this start? What was the genesis of the original Adam Doud and your work, and then where you are now? How did that all kind of kick off for you?
Well, it's funny. My life has been just incidents have forced me into the trajectory that I'm in, through no choice of my own. Okay, so it's kind of, so I started off, like I mentioned way early at the beginning of this, I started off with WebOS, and I created the Dead Technology Twitter account based on WebOS basically being a WebOS person.
Right.
And I even dubbed myself a WebOS historian at one point. It was kind of cute. But then so that developed into me actually doing some writing for a now defunct site called WebOS Roundup, which was one of like the two big WebOS sites at the time. There was Free Central, and then there was WebOS Roundup.
Okay.
So and so I started writing for them, and then WebOS went bye-bye, so did WebOS Roundup, and they kept doing like a mobile roundup, which kind of branched out into like other mobile operating systems, and I stayed on with them for a while. But basically I bought a house, so something had to give. So
Right.
But then I was listening to so Pocket Now had a contest back around the Note 2 era, where they would hide a question somewhere in one of their articles, like one article a day. They would put a question in there, and then at the end of the week, you had to answer all 5 questions in an email, and that was how you entered the contest.
Okay.
And the Wednesday question was actually embedded in the Pocket Now Weekly. So it was a podcast. So I had to listen to the podcast. And at that point, I listened to, Michael Fisher was hosting the Pocket Now Weekly. And Michael Fisher is like the Mount Rushmore of podcast hosts. Like he's on it. And man, that man needs to get behind a microphone again. And I've been bugging him almost constantly for the last like 4 years. Like, you need to do this. But anyway, so anyway, I just really enjoyed his style. So I started listening to the Pocket Now Weekly, regularly. And a few months later, there was just an offhand comment from, I think it was Tony or Brandon, one of the two, that said, "Oh, by the way, we're hiring." And and I'm just like,
okay.
And I sent Anton Denoj is the managing editor at Pocket Now. I sent him the most ridiculous email you could possibly imagine. I mean, it included a YouTube link to treadmill accidents. So I mean, like, just to give you an idea of like how ridiculous this email was. And for some reason, he wrote me back. And so
you probably thought, this guy's unreal, man. I got to find out what the deal with this dude is, because this is awesome. Right.
So at the time, they were looking for a Windows Phone writer. And because they had Adam Lane, but really it was just Adam Lane, and like everybody else was like Android or iOS. So they were looking for another Windows Phone writer. So that's why he brought me on. And then I kind of like transitioned over into Android. And, I eventually, I started doing like 4 or 5 articles a week for him. And it was basically just beer money. And it was the type of thing where I would be working, I'd be working my full-time job, and while I was riding home on the train, I would bang out an editorial about whatever headline I was given, and, they basically gave me the headline, said, write about this. Okay, fine. And then I got involved with the podcast, but I was more on the business end of it, like trying to, round up sponsors and, book guests and stuff like that, basically just to kind of take things off the plate of Michael, who was, busy making videos and writing and, being the awesome Michael that he is. So, and then like I got an email, I went to CES and, started to talk to some folks at Android Authority, and eventually like 18 months after that, I got an email from, Android Authority saying, hey, you want to come work for us? So I left Pocket Now and I started going over to Android Authority. And then right about that time, I was working for a startup, and the startup did not do well. So, so I had to cut ties with them. And so Android Authority brought me on full time, and they, Android Authority canceled their podcast about 2 weeks before I got there. Because like, by this point, I was also doing TechBeard by this point, which is like one of my old podcasts that I created with my now co-producer Cliff Thomas and Ryan St. Andre, and we were doing that. So like I was very big into podcasting at that time, and like I would listen to the Android Authority podcast, and I'd just be like, this is good, but it could be so much better. And
Right.
like I had ideas as to how I wanted to make it better. And so like as I was getting ready to start working for Android Authority, they said, "Oh, this is our second to last episode." I'm like, oh.
Wow.
So then I spent the next 6 months or so. No, it was actually almost a year. With one false start right around CES of 2018. Trying to get the podcast back up on the air, and Joshua Vergara left. And so like, okay. And so then they're like, well, why don't you host it? I'm like, why don't I host it? Okay.
Sure.
So, yeah. And then, right around that time, they were starting up a Sound Guys podcast, and like, they had already had the idea to do a Sound Guys podcast, and they kind of had like the basic skeleton work in place, and I'm just like, give me 2 weeks and we can make this, awesome. And so I took over for that. And then around August, they decided they wanted to do like kind of like a daily newsletter with, the Digit Daily, which is still going now, and it's still great. Props to Tristan. But anyway, and so I'm like, well, we can make a podcast out of this too. And so then, suddenly I went from having no podcast to 3 podcasts. And then I suddenly went from having 3 podcasts to no podcasts. And that's kind of how we ended up here, today. That was back in January. And I got a call from Cliff around February of this year. And I'm not entirely positive he was sober. But he was just like, you should do a podcast, and it should be called No Doubt About It. And I'm like, I like that, but we gotta tweak the name. I wanted to make the name a little bit more positive,
right?
And so then I like literally Googled phrases with doubt in it, and like that's when I came up with Benefit of a Doubt. And that's and like when I was creating this podcast, it took me about a month from like the time I decided let's go to the time that I was actually able to launch it, and kind of decide like what format it was going to be and whatnot. So I totally lost my train of thought. But no, I knew I wanted to have some elements of a Digit Daily in there. I knew I wanted to have some elements of, the Android Authority podcast, and I knew I wanted to have some elements of the Sound Guys podcast. And now I had like the ability to put them all together.
Right.
And so that's like, and it's kind of funny because when you look at like podcasting, there's the thing that we're doing now, I call it three guys with a mic. Right. And then there's like the news podcast, like, Apple today announced that they are buying Disney for $8.5 billion or whatever. Right. And then there's like the storytelling narrative type podcast. And I think like with the Digit Daily and the Android Authority podcast and the Sound Guys podcast, that was all 3. And that covers basically the main 3 genres of podcasting. Right. And I did all of them. So It's like I didn't even have like a focus. I like because there's stuff about each one of them that I really love. Like I really genuinely love, just hanging out and chatting with 2 other guys. I love, keeping up with the news and, deciding what's the most important thing going on. And I love, just the ability to tell a long narrative supported by music and supported by sound effects and stuff like that. So I love all 3 of them. And I'm just really happy now that I can have a podcast where I can incorporate all those different elements.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I said I like your show because it's almost like it seems like when you're listening to your podcast and it's having the news, it almost going to be like Phnom Penh yesterday, like like AP. It's like an AP news article, right? And it's like that old school, like Walter Cronkite. It's kind of, but it doesn't. It kind of starts to just talk more conversationally. It's not like that stodgy. Somebody's reading off a teleprompter, somebody's reading off a script and just giving you well, this person just, by the way, stock price is up 2 points and it's not just reading off an actual AP news article or whatever. It's actually starts to sound like that, but then actually starts to be more of softer conversational tone, which is kind of a good play. I like how it works.
Yeah. And I like to inject my own take into things. Like, I'll tell you that Apple just bought Disney, and then I'll make a joke about it, or I'll say like, here's why that really matters. Or most of the time I'm going to make a joke about it though.
Right.
So, but that is one of the reasons why I like your podcast, because it's newsing, but it's also genuine. It's not like there's a bit of personality in it. So, and that's what I like. I don't like listening to podcasts where I'm listening to it and it's like, and this and this and this and this and this and this and that's it. And this. And that's it. There's no personality in it.
It's almost antiseptic. Yeah.
Like, it's informative, but it's boring. So I'm not actually taking in any of the information that's being said.
Right. So and what's funny is like you'll hear about Phil Schiller becoming an Apple Fellow, which is something that happened this week, and he's basically moving on to be. But you're like, okay, like why will I care about that? Like what am I going to remember about this, and how am I going to remember this? And the way I help you remember it is I'll say something funny about it. I don't want to. That is in the podcast today, and I don't want to spoil the joke, but but I have to say, like this episode, and I appreciate you guys bearing with me here, so I can kind of like tease this out. But this episode that I'm putting out today is number 24, and it is I think one of my favorite episodes that I've done so far. Because I really think that the news was on point, and I think that the jokes were on point, and maybe I'm cracking myself up. I don't know, but and that's very possible, and it's okay because it's my podcast. And that's what I can do. But just the guests that I had, and spoiler alert, there's 2 guests on today's show, which is a little different.
Cool.
But the guests that I had on, really good conversation going on there. And it's a really fun show, and I enjoyed the hell out of editing it. And I hope you'll enjoy the hell out of listening to it.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Like I said, I was listening to, we were talking before the show about listening to your last one about your trip to Western Michigan, and it was like all the stuff you took and what you wind up going, I didn't use any of this shit. I used just this. And and here's the funny thing, if you're paying attention to it, you can hear even in the podcast, you almost like, yeah, no shit. I just used the Kindle. That was what I was like. I just drank a little bit, and that's what I usually do when I go on my trips. I bring all this crap. I bring my Switch, and I bring all this stuff, and I wind up just sitting there by the fire, drinking beer with my buddies, and we're just talking, and we're playing golf and shooting guns and just talking about our lives and just chilling. You don't even really use anything other than maybe just reading, a store book, or just having an actual book, right? Not just a digital one. So it was even cool to see how you were even in your own podcast. Like, I was actually kind of surprised that it was like, if you would have asked me before I left, I would have not expected that to occur the way it did.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And that's exactly why I did it, because like I think that happens to everybody. I think everybody gets home from a vacation. You're like, the hell did I take this for? Right. And so like, I mean, and it's really eye opening, because this summer we were supposed to go to Hawaii. And that is an entirely different conversation. A 4-hour road trip to Michigan rather than packing for Hawaii. And I gotta say, like most of the stuff I took to Michigan, I was also thinking about taking to Hawaii, and no.
Yeah, bad idea.
Like, especially like after what I learned here, I'm definitely gonna be toning that down. So.
Well, I never used to have much time to listen to podcasts, but all of a sudden I found myself with some spare days this past week and this week coming. So I think I'll be listening to a few more and more. Maybe I'll uncover another one that I really like. But
excellent. I love
found myself with some time. So
if you're interested, if anybody's looking for like podcast recommendations, I just listened to a podcast called Floodlines, which is a look at Katrina. And Katrina, New Orleans.
Wow.
And especially how it affected, because one thing to keep into perspective, like with Katrina, is this all happened pre-smartphone. So So like when it came, they were talking about like communications blackouts. I don't doubt that, because like smartphones were, or even cell phones weren't as ubiquitous as they are today.
Right,
So
exactly.
it's like, you keep that in the back of your head, but also, there's a lot of focus on, how Katrina affected African American communities. So, and so it's very serious, but it's also like there's one character in there. I think it's in episode number 4. I love this guy. He was like the general that they brought in to like help with the cleanup.
Okay, cool.
And like this guy is just he and I like were cut from the same cloth, because like I'll just give you like one example where there were some rumors flying around after Katrina that there were snipers in the city shooting at helicopters that were trying to like rescue people. And so like this general goes up to like the chief of police and says, so you say there were snipers out there? Yeah. Well, did they hit you? Well, no. Well, did they hit any of the helicopters? No. Well, they probably weren't fucking snipers, were they? I love that. I'm just
They're
like,
probably
man.
shitty people. I mean, I can imagine not hitting a pilot in a helicopter, but not hitting an entire helicopter.
Yeah.
If you're a sniper,
he's
you
like,
might want to look for a new line of work.
we got a whole bunch of helicopters here. Ain't no one of them got a bullet hole in it. And it's just like, I love that. I love that guy. So yeah, if you listen to Floodlines, it's a great show. It's like I think an 8 episode arc, so it's a really easy listen. So
cool. Yeah, it's good stuff. I love hearing those kind of things, because those are always things when you're looking for something that's, it's not always tech. I mean, I listen to Joe Rogan podcasts. I listen to Bill Burr's Monday morning podcast. I listen to one that was, when I first started listening to it, called Distorted View. It's a guy who does a show that's really, really kind of raunchy and really bad stuff. But I listen to all sorts of stuff. So it's good to always, because you don't always stumble upon those kind of things just looking. So I'm going to check that out, because I love anything that involves something like historical, right? From perspectives of people on the ground, living it, working it, and having little anecdotal, funny little stories like, yeah, right, you're an idiot shooting at helicopters. What the hell's wrong with you? You lost your damn mind. What the hell's wrong with you, man? Yeah. So to hear those stories from people who are actually there at the incident and having those captured and having those stories is fantastic. That's so fascinating to me. I love to listen to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it.
I can't hear you, Matt. You got you? Are you on mute? What are you?
It's all the cough. Sorry, it's because I coughed.
Right.
I'd love to see you try and hit a helicopter with a sniper rifle.
Oh my!
Mm-hmm.
I think
that would be hilarious.
now, here's the thing: if you're referencing to my failure at being able to play Call of Duty properly, then you're an asshole, because that's not a game. That's a real thing. I can tell you here and now, I'm a pretty good shot. Okay, I'm a fan. Not a great shot. I wouldn't call myself a sharpshooter, but I'm definitely a better than average. And I've used a bunch of different platforms, handguns, sniper rifles. I've shot a 50 cal. It's crazy, right? It's an insane weapon to fire. But,
I shot a clay pigeon. I mean,
you did.
Counts, right?
They have shotguns. Did you?
That's the closest you can get to shooting properly in there.
I once shot in the general direction of a clay pigeon. I did not hit it though.
Oh, okay. Well, it takes some time. It's a little practice, and sometimes you get good. So yeah, that's a little bit of oh yeah, that's definitely a TK. TK's in the house. He said, "Yeah, I'm hearing a seal Call of Duty dare." Oh yeah, because he's.
Oh yeah, I need to get TK online with us. I need to get TK online with us.
Why? Because is he really good?
That'd be great. That'd be great. No, because we're streaming on this channel in the week to get obviously for the affiliate link and everything else. We have to stream every day. So we're doing gaming, and I'm thinking, we can get different people from the community involved in doing multiplayer on a game or something. It'd be all right, laugh.
Yeah, it'd be a good deal. So yeah,
I play Call of Duty mobile. I don't play the big boy version of Call of Duty because I don't have a console.
Well, apparently I don't really well anyway, so that's why that guy
he plays. Is all I can say, really.
Yeah, I just show up.
He's good bait. He's really good bait.
Oh well, yeah, okay, great.
Yeah, so
we can find out where everybody's hiding.
So you said you don't have a console. So are you more of a PC guy or?
No, I'm not a gamer at all. Honestly,
Okay.
I'm a mobile gamer, so I'll just play. And it's funny because I really focus like on like maybe one, possibly two mobile games at a time, and
Okay.
like I just have no room in my life for anything else. So it used to be Clash Royale. Now it's kind of Call of Duty Mobile. I like Call of Duty Mobile because I play it with my son, so we can kind of like bond over it. And
Cool.
Ooh,
and
TK.
my son's got some skills. I'm just saying.
They do. These kids are crazy, man. They're really good at this stuff. They pick it up like that.
Well, I tweeted a couple of weeks ago. I said I put a screenshot up. I said, "Hey, remember that one time when my son and I both got both tanks in the Call of Duty Battle Royale?" Yeah, that was today. And so like it was a screenshot of like both of our tanks side by side.
Oh,
I won earlier because I got there first in the tank at the end.
Nice. So, I've been doing the airborne with the sniper rifle. That's been like me recently. So if you've ever been sniped from the top of a tower, good chance it was me.
Oh, probably so. It was probably me because I used to I'd be walking out there. When we talk about bait, I would be walking around going, "Yeah, this is cool, right? I don't see nobody, right?" Because I'm used to playing. I play hardcore free for all, so it's everybody's in the same map. So I'm running across the thing.
Well.
Great. And I'm running. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, whatever. I'm better. So I walk across, and all of a sudden, I'll just
your ass.
Damn, and a fucking bullet just like right through the side of my head. I'm like, holy shit, where did that come from? Right? It's like, well, that's what you get by running across open ground, you dumb bastard. There's probably somebody just going, this poor sucker. He's just watching me, tracking me all the way. Went,
You know all those movies where the soldiers are running through big open fields? No, I've never seen that movie. Well, there's a reason for it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And if you get shot on Warzone from a sniper rifle while you're running across an open field, it might have been me.
Yeah. So that's me. They just like to make fun of me. It's fine.
I've been practicing sniping for a lot of years on first-person shooter games, and I'll be big-headed, but I am good at it.
Yeah. Mad respect.
So that's cool. So yeah, not a lot of gaming. I mean, I play a little bit on. I played World of Warcraft. That's all I play on a PC, but I play a little bit here and there. So, well, I really am glad you were able to show. Like I said, we're at that kind of 1 hour and 5 minute mark. So Adam, it's been awesome, man. I love like your podcast. I think it's fantastic. You gave great feedback, and we've used it. I put a little bit of music at the show. Trying to learn how to edit it. I'm not really good at that either. So I've had it where the music I had to figure out how to fade it. I was like, cool. But then I have it stop and then the music starts. But then I listened to your podcast, the one you just did, and I noticed that the music kind of tails in and then your voice, you start to speak while the music's tailing off. It doesn't just like the music fades off nice, but then there's this break and then I'm having to try to clean up the break. So I'm going to try to see if I can overlap that. So it's just listen to your podcast, listen to how you do your work, loving your content, and also just listening to how your feedback that you gave, which I thought was really, really helpful, just kind of generally giving us a leg up. So we're trying to do it the right way organically. And we're not very great. I mean, we have definitely, this is not something I'm looking to turn into.
We're unique.
Yeah, we're different. And so we appreciate you taking time to come with us and even just coming on the show at all. I mean, this is just a little small thing we do for fun. So just taking your time to even come on is an honor and privilege for us for sure.
I love doing this. I love, just hanging out and talking to people. I love talking about tech and I love podcasting. So, I mean, this is like everything that I love in one thing. So, hey, off the air, let's chat about how to edit a little bit. I can give you some pointers and, talk about like what software you're using and all that fun stuff. So yeah, definitely.
Sounds awesome. So, and then so in case people don't know, I'm sure most of the people in here are pretty familiar with your work and where to find you. In case that we have some people that's dragging along or coming on that aren't know, what's the best way they can get a hold of you and listen to your content?
Well, Twitter is the best way to get a hold of me. My DMs are open, so feel free to drop me a message anytime. Happy to chat. You can also check out my podcast, which is Benefit of the Doud, and the last name is spelled D-O-U-D. Thank you.
That's great.
So yeah, Benefit of the D-O-U-D. And, or you can visit Benefit of Doud on Twitter because we couldn't fit the.
Right.
But and
I feel the struggle.
I'm doing writing these days for like primarily like digital trends and LifeWire. And with occasional stuff at Board at Work, I've got a laptop review actually that I'm working on at Board at Work for hopefully next couple of days. I'll be getting that up for the Lenovo Flex 5G, and Yeah, so that's like pretty much where you can find me. That's all me. That's where
Perfect. Matt, sir, you feel?
I've been up and down. It's fine. Normally it's a bit more energetic, but we're good.
Yeah,
we're
well,
good.
considering the situation, I'm glad you're here. Like I said, you look great, and Adam's awesome, and it's just been a great time. And like I said, I would hopefully, if it's sometime in the future, if your bandwidth and your time, it allows it, we'd love you to come back on, follow up, see where you're at, especially as the end of the year walks around, news coming out, because we only talk about some stuff, but only within an hour. You can't get to everything I would like to talk about, because I could spend hours talking to you guys about this stuff.
That's what I mean. Yeah. It's great. It's great fun. I mean, when we've not got a guest on, like next week, it's a bit of fun. Chatting backwards and forwards, ripping the piss out of each other and stuff. But we try and cover as much as we can, an hour and 15 max.
Sure.
So it's good fun.
Yeah, if you run into a bind and you don't have a guest or something, you want to drop me a line. I'm available a lot. So
oh well, you might have stepped on a little bit of a landmine there, because we may take you up on that a little bit more often than you probably recognize, because we're not exactly like they're not chomping at the bit here to get into our podcast. Rogan Spirits, we're not.
No,
well, they should be, because damn it, it's fun.
Well, our next guests are our next show's on Sunday next week, but then the following week it's not on Sunday. We've moved it to Monday because we've got Super Saf and John Rettinger on. So we've moved days.
Roll out the red carpet for those guys. So.
Right.
We slightly moved the day just because we kind of can't be accommodated with Easter. We have to time zones, different time, people with families and stuff like that. We are flexible in ways we can move it around a little bit for.
And just so we're clear, it wasn't like they were like, he's like, yeah, you're gonna have to move your show to Monday because I don't do Sundays. It wasn't like that. It was just
I was backwards and forwards with John, just a bit like just having a chat. Yeah, we got the show. Come on, but and we sort of came up with the day, and then Saf's just gonna jump on same day.
Yeah, so it's going to be cool. So we'll definitely take you up on coming on the show. We'd love having you on today and listening to your insight about things. And I'm kind of excited because by the time I get for this evening, I'm actually going to get ready and listen to your show. And really, I just love it's just nice because it's nice where I can sit there, just put some headphones in. If I'm playing a game or I'm on the internet looking at stuff, just listening to your content. I just, like I said, I find it to be a really good approach to getting the news, and it's just right in the right spot for me. I just love the content. It's always a blast to listen to.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'll definitely be listening tomorrow for sedation.
Excellent.
And then for all the people in the chat, we got Aditya, Gary the Fireman, Simon, Aditya. We got
Roasted's requesting, we the people request TK Bay and some gadget guy to come on the show.
Okay, well, we'll take those.
We are trying to work out a day where we all have an hour at exactly the same time, because it is difficult. We've all got families, jobs, things like that. It is difficult, especially when we have more than one person, to get everybody who's in different time zones and
I agree
families and work. It's like find everyone having a 1 hour slot at the same time is quite difficult.
Yeah, and I agree with Ronald. He says we need to get Edibon on. I would love to have him on. I would be honored to have him on. That would be fantastic. Yeah. He is awesome. I love that guy. His content is so original and so great. I just like it. Just cracks me up. He makes me smile. I'd love to have him on. And for everybody that contributes, TK's in the house. I saw Tech Loving Mama in here earlier. Aditya, Simon, Ronald, all of our guys, all of our folks, all of our ladies that love tech. Thanks for coming in and having Adam on.
Aditya's just said we need to do the fusion dance.
No, I don't dance, man. That's something I'm going to leave to TK and Juan, because they sing.
Yeah.
And I don't know about any of that kind of stuff. Dancing is not my thing, and it's bad enough I have to be on here a video. It's not a good look for me. I'd rather just not be.
Gary the Fireman with the Thunder E thumbs up comment.
So awesome.
I was going to say I'd rather have the curtain, to be fair. I'm just saying.
Right. We can't. You know what? We can't have everything we want in life. Sometimes we have to take what we get. We're not exactly.
That would be so much fun, man. That would be so much fun.
So, Adam, sir, we really appreciate you taking your time. Come on anytime, and as always, we'll be definite fans. And for folks listening, please go to Adam's website, go to Adam's content, listen to his podcast, subscribe to it, drop him a comment, engage in that. Trust me, I just listened to his last one about his trip to Western Michigan and just his opening about, hey, I took this tech, and just listening to him just talk about it is just really enjoyable. So it's a great time, and you guys will enjoy it. And if you haven't listened to it, please subscribe and get some traffic Adam's way. He really deserves. He's a good dude.
Leave a review.
Thank you so much. And one more time with the clear bottle.
That's awesome. God, that's a great trick.
That is literally the most favorite thing I've seen all weekend.
Yeah, it definitely made me smile. It looked for me, so for sure. So for myself, for Adam Doud, our esteemed guest, and Matt,
what's left of me?
Everybody, stay safe. Matt, rest up, brother. We gotta have some more times, and it's gonna be a good time. And listen to the show. Please drop any kind of comments. Please reach out to us if you have any ideas. Follow us on the podcast. Listen up, and we'll be back next Sunday.
Wear masks and stay away from people with COVID.
Right. We don't do that, and try to all take care of each other. Have a good weekend. Mask up like Adam does. It's not hard, folks. Although he's working multiple channels there. It's God love him. Look at him.
Do not.
There you go. See, that took 10 seconds. It's not that hard, folks.
See, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about. It's not hard. People don't seem to understand. Like, can you breathe right now?
Yes.
Like, no. Like exactly. Like, what's the problem? I
can breathe just fine. See?
Yeah, I got mine. I got mine here. See?
Yeah.
Mine's in the car because that's where I need it whenever I go out. Because if I don't put it in the car, I'll forget the darn thing.
Well, this is with my work jacket. So
okay. So for all of us here at the Across the Pondcast and Adam Doud, we would love to having you guys on. Please come back next Sunday, and we'll hope to bring you some more good content and some great chats. And as always, take care of yourselves and be good to each other. Okay, you guys have a good day. Take care.